My name is Susan, and I'm 65 years old, soon to retire. My only son has married and moved out of the family home, so now it's just my husband and me. My husband is working in a rehired position. Our son and his wife live nearby, and I'm always happy when they bring the grandchildren over to visit. However, the relationship between my husband and me has not been that great. When we first got married, my husband used to care about me, but after our son was born, the children became the priority, and I could not pay enough attention to my husband. My husband never helped with household chores, so he didn't have a great relationship with our son either. When our son would come to visit at our parents' house, he would say, if my husband was out, I'm glad Dad's not here today. Even if he were here, I wouldn't know what to talk about with him. He said it with a relieved look on his face. His wife would laugh at this, but it was clear that our son disliked his father. After our son got married and moved out, I felt somewhat unsettled in my life alone with my husband. Fortunately, my husband often goes out on his own on weekends, so we don't spend much time alone at home. But I knew that once I retire, we would be spending more time together. My husband is still working, but he comes home on time, and once his re-employment period ends, he will be home all the time. I could continue working, but eventually I'll have to quit my job, and then I'll be at home, facing my husband all the time. Thinking about that started to make me feel depressed. My current employer had asked me to continue working after retirement, so that was my plan. My husband seemed interested in whether I would continue working after retirement and asked me, will you be home all the time after you retire, Susan? I responded by asking him, I'll continue working. Is that okay? My husband, looking relieved, replied, that's better. It's good to keep working while we're still fit. I'll retire in a year. This was the first time I heard that my 68-year-old husband was planning to quit his reemployment job in a year, so I asked, a little concerned, are you quitting already? You're not feeling ill, are you? I checked with a hint of worry. I still feel strong, but I don't need to work anymore, do I? We have your retirement savings now, so we have enough money, right? My husband answered with a sly smile. I was shocked that he suddenly brought up my retirement savings. My husband had a habit of thinking my money was his, and after suffering repeatedly, I had recently decided not to talk about my finances with him. This all started right after we got married. When I told my husband about a bonus I received, he said, Susan's company really does give generous bonuses. Without consulting me, he bought a big TV, saying, Susan will pay for it. You can pay for this TV with your bonus, so it's all good, right? He talked about it as if it was a matter of course. I had planned to save the bonus for our future, like buying a home or having children, but it ended up being used to buy the TV because of my husband. Despite having only a small room, he bought an unnecessarily large TV and said, a big TV really does make a difference. He seemed satisfied, but I wasn't. I decided not to tell my husband about my bonuses anymore. Since I usually earned more than my husband, I contributed more to living expenses, so it was problematic to have my bonus used without my consent. But even when I didn't tell him the amount of my bonus, he would still shop on his own, and I'd ask, the company's performance is down and the bonus is small this year, so why are you buying expensive things? We had several big fights about this. Each time, my angry husband would yell at me, if you have a complaint, get out of the house! But we live in a house I contracted and paid for, so he'd be the one in trouble if I left. The husband, after yelling, seemed to realize it too, and said, I'll let it slide just this once. In exchange, you will take care of the payment, okay? He spoke with an awkward look on his face. Because of my husband's wasteful spending, we never managed to buy our home. But we helped our son and his wife with money for their home purchase. I had saved the money we used, but my husband said, since we're helping them, they'd better take good care of us in our old age. He talked as if he'd pay the money himself. The son, who knew the truth, said, Mom's the one who gave us the money, so I intend to take care of her in her old age. But Dad, you're all talk, and I don't want to live with you. He said this with a look of disbelief on his face. I was dissatisfied with my financially irresponsible husband. But after our son got married, there were even instances that made me suspect infidelity, and I was angry. Even before retiring, my husband would go out alone on holidays and always say, "I'm going out to play with friends," as he left the house. He loved casino games and would stay out late, leaving Saturday evening and often returning Sunday afternoon. He had no other hobbies. I let him do as he pleased, since he didn't seem to be spending much money. But one day when he went out to play casino games as usual, a friend who was supposed to be playing with him called and said, "I tried calling husband's mobile phone, but he didn't answer. He's not sick or anything, is he? I haven't seen him lately, so I thought he might be feeling unwell and called your home." He was concerned about my husband's health. When my husband came home in the evening and I told him about the call, he said, "Huh? That's strange. I was playing casino games with him." He was hastily making excuses. From this moment on, I began to suspect my husband's actions, but he didn't seem to think anything of it, and he continued to go out somewhere, claiming he was going to play casino games. There were other suspicious behaviors too. When our grandchild was born, my husband tried to take a picture with his mobile phone, but accidentally displayed all the photos he had taken so far. And there was a picture of a woman I didn't know. I hadn't noticed, but my son, who saw a photo, told me, "Dad, there's a picture of a woman on your mobile phone. There's also a picture of you two together. Could you possibly be having an affair?" With a serious look on his face. My husband always has his mobile phone with him, and it's locked, so I can't check inside. My son, who dislikes his father, insisted, "Maybe we should get a private detective agency to investigate for an affair. He's definitely cheating on you." He was desperate for me to investigate my husband, but I left it as it was, as getting divorced now would be a hassle. I was feeling bothered, but more than that, I was scared about what to do if my husband was really having an affair. In the end, I retired without investigating my husband's affair. But my husband, who was concerned about my retirement assets, asked me in an angry tone, "How much do you have in retirement assets? You've retired now, so you must know the amount." I told him the truth. "About $300,000? It's all in the bank." The moment he heard my words, my husband's face changed to a smile. "There's that much? It's in the retirement account, right? It's risky these days, so you should manage it properly," he said with an impatient look. My husband knows where I hide the account contract, so I calmed him down by saying, "Don't worry, the necessary documents are in the safety deposit box, and I'm managing them properly." Seeing my husband's behavior, when I looked at my husband, it seemed like he was after my retirement assets, so I asked, "You're not planning on running off with my retirement assets, are you?" I asked, testing him maliciously. "What are you talking about? I'm just worried about the money, and I haven't thought about doing anything like that at all." Contrary to his confident words, he lacked focus, and I couldn't believe him. The next morning, after such a conversation, I casually noticed that my husband was missing. I thought he really had run away with my retirement assets, so I checked the safety deposit box, and it was gone. I had thought that after talking so much the previous night, he wouldn't take the account contract, but it seemed to have no effect on my husband. I sighed and went to the living room, where the divorce papers and a note were left on the table. "I'll take your retirement assets as compensation. I'm remarrying with my new girlfriend, so please, file the divorce papers soon." That's what it said, but I thought my husband had gone crazy, thinking that he could get compensation from me after having an affair. I contacted my son immediately. My son, who had come home, said with a look of disbelief, "I never thought he would be this terrible. You should divorce him right away, and we'll make sure he pays compensation." He said that with a disgusted face. "Mother-in-law, let's live together in our house. We always planned on this since you helped with the funds when we bought the house." My son's wife, who had come with him, made this delightful proposal. It seemed like she wanted to live with me from the beginning, but my son disliked living with his father, so the discussion about living together never really progressed. I decided to request a lawyer to claim compensation from my husband, as I prepared to move into my son's house. My husband ran off with the money, but it feels like things are moving in a good direction for me. He's openly talking about remarrying his new girlfriend and admitting to his infidelity, though I have to be grateful to him for saving me the trouble of investigating. As I was thinking about moving to my son's house and starting to claim compensation from my husband, he suddenly called me. "What's going on here? There's only a few tens of dollars in your account!" he yelled. "What do you mean, taken? I didn't give you that retirement fund. Besides, I was waiting for you. I have something to talk to you about as well." "I don't care about that! Where's the retirement fund?" "It's in another account of mine, don't worry. Besides, where are you living now? I want to claim compensation, so can you give me your contact information?" My husband panicked when I mentioned claiming compensation. "I have to pay compensation? Hold on, I have something to do. I'll call you back." He must have realized he was at a disadvantage, and hung up, but after a while, he called again. "Susan, where are you? The house is locked and there's even a for rent sign." To my increasingly frantic husband, I replied, "I want to send your belongings, so tell me where you're living now. It's tough to keep renting a storage unit all the time." He reluctantly gave me his address, so I sent his belongings along with the documents for claiming compensation. I wrote that he should contact my lawyer directly from now on, so I ignored any calls from him. Then, unbelievably, my husband showed up at my son's house. You're living with Susan?" He threatened my son at the door, but my son bravely retorted, "You divorced Mom, didn't you? I don't want to deal with you either, so don't come here again. Pay Mom her compensation soon." He yelled back at his father. Maybe it was the first time his son had shouted at him, but my husband suddenly quieted down. "That's right. Please pay the compensation soon." When I appeared from the back, my husband suddenly smiled. "So, you are here after all. Let's forget about the divorce and live together, happily again." Although we had never lived happily together before, he kept saying things that suited him. "Don't just say selfish things. I've already filed for divorce. You must have heard from the lawyer." I responded coldly, and my husband had no reply. A few days before my husband came here, I received a report from a lawyer that he'd been dumped by his mistress. He was thrown out of his lover's house, and with nowhere to go, I suspected he'd eventually come to depend on our son. It happened just as I thought. It seemed his mistress was only interested in his money, and when she realized she wouldn't get my retirement assets, she must have lost interest in my husband. He was abandoned quite easily. My husband apologized deeply to my son and me, but my son didn't forgive him, saying, "I never really liked you, Dad, but after this, I've come to hate you completely. Leave right now, and don't ever come back here again." He spoke those harsh words to his father. I was furious at my husband for not only cheating on me, but also trying to take my retirement assets. "I can't stand the sight of you, so never show your face in front of us again. If you have anything to say, contact us through the lawyer," I yelled at him. When he refused to leave, I threatened, "If you don't leave, I'll call the police. Acting like a stalker will get you arrested." At the mention of the police, my husband's face turned to shock and fear, and he fled. Afterward, he rented an apartment and started living alone, but he had to pay me compensation, so he ended up with no savings. He had been buying various things in anticipation of my retirement assets, and now only debt remained. He had said that he would quit his job a year after I retired, but he now has to keep working to pay off the debt. He might be lonely since his lover left him, but maybe it's a good thing that he has a new goal of debt repayment. Living with my son's family, I get along well with my son's wife, and being with my grandchild is incredibly fun. We were all thrilled to learn that my son's wife is pregnant with their second child. While working part-time, I've been helping my son's wife, doing housework and taking care of my grandchild. Despite being busy, I'm enjoying fulfilling days.